All right, you guys, welcome to this episode of the Outrun Show. It's a very special episode. We are talking some history of Outrun, and we have a very special announcement that we're going to talk about 30 minutes into the episode today. So if you want to listen to our earlier conversation, which is going to be talking about history, and we have a playful discussion around one of our favorite shows, Avatar, The Last Airbender, and Korra, which there's a debate about, for some reason, a constant debate about which one is better. It is controversial. But if you want, you can skip forward in 30 minutes and just hear that special announcement. But if you want to hear the amazing saga of Outrun and some of our history is what led us here today, then stay with us on this episode of the Outrun Show. All right, so you guys
start her off.
So you guys, we're talking a little bit of history today, but one of the sagas, the fictional sagas that, of course, we'd love to draw parallels to.
Well, yeah, Justin actually sparked this debate again.
It was dead for a bit, huh?
It was just kind of everybody, let bygones be bygones. But then Justin sparked it last night by sending a link.
To the
I didn't watch the interview. But who was the interview with?
Yeah, I don't know, Brian something.
Was it one of the writers?
I think it must have been one of the writers. Yeah.
And the quote was, so if you don't know Avatar, The Last Airbender, or The Legend of Korra, they're both on Netflix right now. And you can watch. They're both amazing shows, regardless. Like, everybody, even if on both sides of the debate of like which series is better, everybody says both ones are amazing. They're great shows. It's just, trying to decide who's the 0.1% and who's just in the 1%.
Dude, I hear a lot of people who hate super hard on Korra.
I'm just going to go out on a branch and say at least a quarter of those people are just misogynists. And that's why. And I'd be willing to say that out loud.
I think you're probably right.
I think they're also not everybody.
Okay.
But I would definitely say there's a large percentage.
If you go and say
it's
that
a
show is
female
terrible,
protagonist.
then for sure.
Yeah, you don't like it.
Yeah, if you say there's nothing redeemable about that show, it's because you're
it has the second one has a female lead, and I think that some people found that very jarring. So
yeah, which it shouldn't be, but it is. So we'll start here, Justin. I know your answer, but for the listeners, best one, best show, Last Airbender, Legend of Korra.
Legend of Korra,
hands down.
Oh yeah, I mean.
Travis, I think, is the most. Yeah, which one's better? Travis, I think, is the most neutral here.
I'm pretty neutral. I think they're pretty separate stories. If I had to sit down and rewatch one of them, which I've done both recently, I think that Korra is more rewatchable, if that makes sense.
But that's a very political answer. Which one did you pick? Keep in mind, this is like voting. The only way you throw away your vote is by not voting. Okay? That's the only way you throw away your vote.
I'm going to vote third party, the blue Avatar.
The James Cameron one?
The James Cameron one. And so people shouldn't get confused with that. So if you're a listener who doesn't understand that this was a show that was on Nickelodeon, that was sort of a homogeny of Eastern and Western sort of like fiction and lore presented in this sort of like really cool setting that teaches these moral lessons throughout, 4 seasons for each? 3 seasons? 4 seasons each and whatnot. And it is kid friendly. You could definitely watch The Last Airbender with kids. They're going to get it. I tried to show Korra to my daughters, and it's like 7, and she was like, nah, not much. But now she loves it.
Yeah.
She's 9 now.
I think it's
perfect time for her to watch Korra.
I think it's worth stating, too, that to preface the debate with, Korra was meant for an older age group.
Absolutely.
Right? Like when the show came out, when The Last Airbender came out, it was definitely geared towards kids like 8 through 12, right?
Yeah.
And they just happened to resonate with a market that was older, like ourselves,
the writing was
the writing was so good, and we were like, actually, this is just awesome to watch.
Right.
And that's a sign of like really good screenwriting, is when a show that's meant for kids is entertaining for the parents or the adults or even older demographics as well. Which is why Last Airbender is still an amazing show. I would never be like, it's a crappy show. It's great. It's fantastic.
Which is why it's not like Shrek, which is like it's like for kids, but there's all these innuendos. No, the writing was just that good. Like it just doesn't have innuendos like that or anything. It's just really good, witty, creative, interesting writing.
Just entertaining.
Very entertaining.
That's a great show.
Yeah, I would say I relate to Korra more. I would have to pick Korra between those, and I would say that simply because of the amount of injuries and sort of struggle that you endure as an adult, and how much more that deals with it. The Last Airbender deals with a little. It's not Korra. The earlier one with Aang deals more with loss than Korra perhaps, but Korra deals with those like personal struggles and overcoming trauma. Like
before I just need to answer.
Sorry,
which one?
I'm
going into my reasoning.
I'm a Korra fan, hands down.
Okay, I think Korra is just a constant story of overcoming trauma, and there's something that's so ridiculously inspiring about that, and how many defeats she has. That's personally why I love Korra. It's just like I can't imagine, going through all those struggles and then winning after season, and then Aang's story I really like is about forming bonds with people and going on adventures.
Absolutely,
and that's something that's super cool, and that fits so well with our culture in the gym. It's just I feel like we're all just a bunch of team avatars here, going through a journey and conquering challenges and laughing along the way. Like that's what I think Aang is the strongest at.
Yeah, and I would like to draw that the thing that's analogous to Outrun is that oftentimes when you look at I'd say brands or groups or teams, there's like a clear like there's a clear like out runner, right? But when you look at, I think that's unique about us is that this crew, this squad it doesn't really have like one clear like top athlete or like there's not, it's very much a team, right? The team aspect of this gym and this culture is very clear. It's very democratic and very evenly spread, and that comes, I think, somewhat from having 3 partners in the business. Yeah, I've had multiple businesses, and when you're like a lone wolf solo, it's obvious who gets all the glory and who's at fault for everything. And then when you have just 2, there's something about 2 where there is sort of like no arbiter in between. Yeah. But when you get to the 3 number, the problem is it's really expensive to have 3 partners. But when you get to 3, you have that like there's always that odd like when there's an imbalance, then someone becomes the avatar and helps sort of bring that together.
That role definitely rotates.
And it rotates.
It depends on like the category of topic. But if you were to throw out a category, I think 9 times out of 10, all of us could be like, oh, they'll agree, I'll be the one guy out. Or they'll agree, he'll be the one guy out.
And you know it coming into the conversations where you're like, I'm going to have to bend really hard to to make this work.
Yeah. We actually just had a big one the other day. And Justin won. Justin, to Justin's credit, he doesn't win very often in those debates.
I just don't feel like he fights very often in
That's
those
debates. Because he would be like, oh, fine, you guys have your way. Yeah, and he's very kind and generous.
I feel like if I'm comparing that to an element, it's air. It's just like, no, I'm not gonna do it.
Okay,
I'm moving. I'll go around.
Yeah, it's true. But I think the maturity that evolves when you have a team is that means not just being okay with the other team members' opinions or that direction, but that also means kind of going along with it too. Because it's very easy to be like, oh, it's fine, I'm not concerned, but I'm also not invested. Yeah. Right? But to be... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, which is like an exact great example that you get from The Last Airbender of like team avatar, right? And that like you're nurturing everybody's individual like skill sets, and people are kind of all like, you know what, at the end of the day, we're all kind of the same team working towards the same goal here. So even if we disagree, it's like it's one for all for one kind of thing. If the team decides we go this way, we all go this way, and we all dive in on that one, right? Yep. And I like that like The Last Airbender was 100% about like forming bonds and nurturing friendship, not just finding friends and being like, hey, Travis, let's go on an adventure. It was about the constant nurturing of that friendship, right? And making sure that it's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a give and take around like relationships. And I thought Aang was really great about that. Like, because you have Zuko's entire story arc.
Who's
right?
the antagonist?
Who, for the first 2 seasons, right? Or
3.
one-
I think
First-
it's 3. There's 4,
Yeah.
right? Oh no,
There's
there's only
4
3 in Aang.
There's 4. You have
there's
all
4,
books.
'cause you have all
a
the
book
books,
for each
yeah.
element.
There's 3. Because he's already heir.
There's only 3?
I think
Only
there's only 3. Yeah, so
Yeah,
first
watch
2.
all of them.
So, okay, so then first 2. So then, yeah, first 2, the main protagonist in the show is a, I don't want to ruin for people, but I guess I kind of already have. Is the main protagonist becomes part of Team Avatar and
Love
joins
those
the team,
stories.
which is
Those
so
are my favorite
cool
stories, yeah.
because you get to watch that journey and you get to see Aang's character in the way that he approaches his enemies, and it's very much like Justin. It's a wind approach, right? It's like, it's that air. It's like, oh, somebody's coming at me and they're just like, I'm your enemy. And you're like, okay, but I'm not your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
We could be friends if you wanted to. And Aang's character is so good about that because I feel like when you watch kids shows that have combatives in them,
Mhm.
you never get a character that's like, it's okay, I'm not your enemy, but you can view yourself as my enemy, but I don't view you that way, right? And they're very like non-confrontational,
It doesn't follow the traditional like Hollywood or Western character arc in
where
that
they
way.
just like amp each other up until
Right.
eventually
Until
your hero
yeah.
has to fight. Yeah.
Right, and so that's super cool, and it's also a story of, I would say, I don't want to say betrayal, but yeah, acceptance. There's betrayal and acceptance,
Yeah.
and betrayal and acceptance, and that stands out. And I think when I was talking about loss, you know, that some of the earlier characters, and the show starts this way, so almost all the characters lose parents or lose their family,
Yeah.
and then they're rebuilding that family with their relationships. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And then Korra, I think, just deals with that individual constant, just it's more, it is, I don't want to say adult topics, but it's just like, it's more things that
Mature.
mature,
More
yeah.
topics.
You would deal with it, you know. I mean, she goes through constant trauma.
I think,
Which
I
is
know.
why I think it's tough for kids, because I think kids don't
Kids don't
understand trauma, and they
Not
don't
yet.
even know that they have it sometimes. And so, recognizing that, and then moving past it.
Yeah, and I think Korra was all about too, not just, but it was about finding your own identity amidst crises, right? So not only is it dealing with trauma and how you rise above that time and time again, but also the entire time she's wrestling with her own self-identity of who she is as in this world, arguably the most important person in the world, and how she wrestles with, well, I just want to be a regular person sometimes, but I can't because I'm also the Avatar, which is the most important person on the planet, right? And her wrestling with that self-identity amid crises, I don't know. I think that resonates so much more with adults who have jobs, who have kids, who sometimes have financial ruin that hits them, right? And they have to just rise up again and again, while the whole time maintaining, who am I amidst all of these things? What are my hobbies? What makes me happy, right?
And you also have the element that you were saying. Who was saying that they didn't know if they were going to get the consecutive seasons with Korra, so they had to write each season as if it would just sort of bring
As a complete arc, yep.
as a complete arc, right? So that was done differently than the Last Airbender, which they knew they had multiple seasons to complete the story arc in, right?
Which is a pretty common argument in that people say that Last Airbender had a cohesive story across the entire series.
Which is just truth.
Which is truth. That's absolutely a fact. And then Korra did have a connection in that the characters all carry through and their struggles carry over season to season. But the antagonist in each season is different. And while I do think the writers, if they had known they were going to get 4 seasons, would have connected those pieces. Yeah. But I like the diversity of antagonists because the reality is you're not going to have one antagonist
right
for your entire life.
It's multi-dimensional, right?
Yeah.
You're usually fighting on 2 fronts.
Yeah.
Right? So that's very true. And so I think that there are some parallels. Like we brought up this story, but I really do think that there are cultural parallels to our crew that we have here, and just sort of like we were talking about beforehand, that again, there's no single, well, there really is no single Avatar in our business and in the culture of the gym.
No
and that's
single antagonist either.
right, exactly. We are all avatars and all antagonists sometimes. So.
I meant external.
Okay.
But yes, we can be our own antagonists sometimes too.
I generally think of like the lease agreements as antagonists. But
Yeah.
So we want to talk a little bit about our story and sort of what our hero's journey has been with our crew. But that is something I want to highlight. That feedback that we get pretty constantly is that this feels like a sense of normalcy or a little bit of a family. And people say that in gyms, pretty regularly. You hear that. But I do like that people can come here, especially post-COVID, and get a taste of normal. Like, things have changed here because of COVID on the business side, and some of the way we organize classes and whatnot, and definitely open gym and things like that have been affected. But generally, I still feel like I could come back here and it felt like home and normalcy. Mm-hmm. And having that is super important, especially if, as you become a teenager or just as you're a kid and you just want to have fun and be around normal and grow in those patterns. I like to think that's something that we're pretty committed to protecting. And in the past, historically, I mean, we have to look at the fact that parkour is kind of cast as sort of like a teenage boy sport, right?
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And we've not intentionally, but just because we have our own goals culturally, there's been some divergence about the degree of shenanigans that we will, accept and work through. And we've tried to make that a little more, open to family and to anybody who's different from fitting that normal mold, but also stay true to the nature of the broader culture of parkour. So we want to talk about some of the analogies with our history. So a lot of people don't know how long we've been around. They don't kind of know what we've been through. Earlier on, again, it was very easy to understand who we were because we were the only ones teaching classes.
Yep.
And you would know who we were because we were who you saw as your teachers, and the overall demographic was less than 50 people in the gym, right? So it was very easy to get to know us. And then one of the reasons we actually created this podcast and show was so that people could still be in touch with everyone, with the leadership of and the founders of Outrun, and still be able to work with a broader group of coaches and friends in their classes. So people could all stay in touch, stay like a family. So let's talk about kind of how long we've been around and what sort of some of our seasons are. And we can let Lisa's loosely be our guide to that.
Outrun has moved locations quite a bit in our 7 years of business.
I think we got 5, right?
I think we got 5, yeah.
Orchards, Athletic Center, Premier, Gymnastics, Loveland.
Fort Collins 1, Fort Collins 2.
Fort 1. Yep.
Yeah. So 5. So we started the business in 2013. Officially.
Yeah.
Officially,
Although beforehand, Justin and I were teaching out of a basketball gym in a regular athletic club.
I never say it was out of a basketball gym. I forget that.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
We retrofitted a basketball court to teach parkour with like 2 panel mats and a couple of home built boxes that our grandpa helped us with.
And we taught swinging by standing on we put a bar on top of 2 boxes, and then Jesse and I stood on the 2 ends of the rails, and then kids would swing.
And then the kids would swing below.
That is analog. That is hyper analog right there.
It's pretty old school. We did have rubber slips underneath them. We were well aware of surfaces at the time. So, I mean, we had to adapt to teach the things that we needed. Mm-hmm. And then shortly after that, we have a friend of ours that we've been in touch with, long time that we've been friends with, Rich.
Since high school, yeah.
And he was opening a facility in Loveland. He owned a gymnastics facility and was expanding to a much larger space, and had reached out to us and wanted us to bring our program there. And so then that's when we essentially migrated all of our equipment there, which was a much better fit anyways, because we didn't have to supply the padded equipment. Basketball courts are not very soft.
Yeah.
And so that was tough to teach the more riskier, higher impact moves when you don't have any padding. So the move to Premier Gymnastics was a fantastic move for us. We loved that. But it still wasn't quite a right fit for us. So we stayed there how long?
Well, this is a story of a lot of parkour gyms, is that you kind of, and even my first Kung Fu school was just sublease from a gymnastics. They have, to be honest, they have too much square footage. They don't know what to do with it. So they're always subleasing on their off times and whatnot. Yeah. But that doesn't mean it's your home. That's the problem with it.
Yep.
Is you always feel like a tenant in that environment. The equipment's not designed for you.
No.
I mean,
yes. You're always doing what you're not supposed to do on everybody else's equipment.
Yeah.
History of parkour right there.
I think because it's a sport that relies so heavily on the individual, on the surface, it seems like they fit really well, right? Because gymnastics is like your floor routines. It's all about the individual rotating on different equipment. But the reality is that like parkour just doesn't, it's a octagon fitting into like a circular hole. It's close, but you have those ridges and those differences that just mean it doesn't match up perfectly. And if you hammer it hard enough, maybe you could squeeze it in there, but you're gonna break something, right?
Yeah, the difference is definitely cultural too.
So even our 18 months of being a premier, which was great for us to start our business and our program, wasn't a quite fit, and that really came to the head. I think. I mean, we were always planning it, but it really came to the head when we brought you on and added Travis to the business, and then
Team Avatar.
Yes, because as brothers, we fight hard and we play hard. So, and sometimes it just ends up like that, where we just fight and we just like, you know what, no one's got any resolution. So Travis came in as our first avatar. He even has the pale color skin of being locked in an iceberg for 100 years.
Yes. Thank you for drawing attention to my pigment, my luminous pigment. You guys, I have to tell a quick funny story about how white I am. I was recording myself doing bag work, and there was a backlit window, and so you've got the camera in one and the sunlight coming in the other, and the focus is on the front, so the window's just whited out, right? Yeah. And there's a punching bag in front of it. And I start to like work around. I start in front of the bag, and you can clearly see it's me. And I have like a white tank top on. And as I move sideways around in between the camera and the light, I become completely invisible. And so because I had these white boxing gloves on, I just literally disappear like it's a.
You just see the bag.
I'm gonna take a screenshot of it because you guys will look at it and you will just cry laughing. And I was like, I can't even see me. I was trying to record me doing something, and instead I literally disappear into the whiteness of the screen.
Did you ever watch? Slight segue out of your segue. Did you ever watch like Samurai Jack?
Yes.
That show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know what scene you're talking
So
about.
there's a scene where he's going up against like a shadow like ninja. Right, and the shadow ninja blends into the dark part. It's a 2D show. It's got a really unique art style. It's super cool. But and this like ninja like disappears in the dark. But then there are casts of light, of white light, and of course, you know, Samurai Jack is our protagonist. He's our hero. So he's a vigil of light and masters the ability to blend into the light and become invisible. So the same as like this shadow ninja is able to disappear in the dark. He's able to disappear in the light, and so that puts him on evil. You are Samurai Jack, disappearing in the light.
Oh,
you can become invisible in the bright, but at dark you glow. In the nighttime, you're just like,
That's why, like, Candy, my wife, she's like, I love when you wear black shirts. And I'm like, why? She's like, I don't know, the contrast. And I think what she's saying is I can find you in places.
But anyways, yeah. So when Samurai Jack walked in and we brought him onto the team, you know, we knew as our student base was growing, as our business model was growing, we knew we needed something for us that was more our space, was our home. And was
let's talk about that just for a second, because I think that is a very interesting and humble choice that turned out for the better, because, you know, I was like, oh, I want to do this. Like, parkour is the next thing. That's what I want to do. I want to start a business doing parkour. And you guys were like, we want to grow a business doing parkour. And we very easily at that moment could have become competitors.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very easy. But we decided that Team Avatar was a better route.
So he was Zuko.
That's cool.
My dad's really nice, though. I like him. So you know, it's the scenario of, do we decide to like be lone wolves, or do we decide to create a team? And that really paid off positively, because I think I would say that just in general, when people are considering partnerships, that there are great advantages to building a team, but you have to be focused on that, building a team. You know, two lone wolves trying to be partners is generally not a great chemistry unless you're looking for a very interesting character arc. But anyway, so we become partners and then start as we move into the first solo location for Team Outrun or Team Avatar. And at that time we were operating under the brand of Apex. We should call that out. That we've talked about earlier stories about where we trained and Justin and Jesse's relationship on the pro team and competition. At that time we need to shout out that our bloodline is definitely of Apex, and that's very important to us. But again, we are sort of in the north. If we make a GOT analogy, we're a ways outside of sort of the hum of Colorado parkourdom, right? And we're up here sort of trying to make our own way and make a business that survives and thrives for our students.
Actually, I remember, so all through high school we were going through Boulder to train at Apex Boulder.
We were going to Boulder to train with Ryan and Amos before we even had an Apex.
Yes. Yeah, we were from the beginning there. And I remember the drive there. It must have taken 30 or 45 minutes. We're going from Johnstown. And I remember the very first time we actually drove to Fort Collins to train, which is closer. We actually met Logan there, so one of our past coaches. Logan had a parkour gathering in Fort Collins, and I remember driving up to Fort Collins and being like, "This place is so far away. Oh my goodness!" Like driving to CSU from Johnstown, and I feel like parents do that right now.
Right? How far it is? Is the distance?
Well, we were driving to Boulder, and I felt like that was the normal. So I truly was like, I felt like Fort Collins was another land.
Right. So we're not super far. For those who don't understand how far apart we are, like it's about a 45-minute drive, but it's one of those 45-minute drives through like a lot of like natural area and interstate. So it always feels like you could not get in 45 minutes from the north to the south of Denver during any kind of traffic, but you'd still feel like,
oh yeah,
that wasn't
same place.
Yeah, same place. But you definitely feel like there's a bit of a journey to get in between the cities in the north. So we should shout out too that Logan who came along later on to join Team Outrun, Team Avatar, whatever, was probably I think he had the first parkour program in Fort Collins. I want to give him credit for that.
Yeah, because he was here before. Justin and I really came to Fort Collins when we went to college here. It was really when we made our branch into Fort Collins. Otherwise, I think we were actually considering Boulder originally, going to CU Boulder for college, but I'm not sure why Justin chose CSU, but I followed.
Yes.
Also because I was just lazy and pragmatic, and that just seemed like the easier choice.
Yeah. So we have this first location. We'll speed forward. So those of you guys who aren't concerned about the history of what we do relative to the geography of Colorado, we'll skip forward for all our like UK listeners who are like, I can't find Colorado. Well, most parkour people
right in the center.
Yeah. It's about in the middle. Right. Anyway, so the wow, that's gonna be tough going to get to.
You got it.
All right, we got it. So
about there,
so
average.
Cullen was flashing me time, so we got to get to the announcement stuff here soon. But that's fine because people are deserving a little bit of the lease history. So we start the program for 1 year lease because we were going to try and open a location in Fort Collins and in Loveland at that time. And we were like, well, let's start out in Loveland. We got a nice spot that was small, cool little office, but it was really only about 1,200, 1,300 square feet of usable training space. Yeah, teachable training
the whole space was actually 2,400 square feet, but it was such a unique shape. I honestly wish we could go back and take that space, because I think now, given like what we've done in our design experience now,
what we know,
I think we could make something super cool out of that space. But it was very hard for us.
Right.
We were low budget and low experience around like designing a facility. And so, that was a tricky one. But I have like the most fond memories of Loveland, because I feel like that's where we really got to like, it's like when you buy your first home, you know?
Yes.
Everybody looks back on
their
their first home and they're like, it was actually pretty crappy when they compare it to my home now.
Yes.
But it was so fun because, I remember when like the water heater burst and like we had to like mop it up.
I think all those things actually happened.
All those things happened.
We had a ghost in there. We didn't even have our own bathroom. We had to go down that super scary hallway to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, we didn't even know there was an archery place behind these dark hallways in the shared restroom, and you just hear thumps against the wall, and you just wouldn't understand until like 5 months later it was archery. Then there was a flood where the entire gym got flooded, and then there's pictures of us somewhere of like us having to mop out like the water and try and keep classes.
I mean, we had 3 or 4 inches of like standing water in our lobby.
Right.
Because that was like the 100-year flood or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That Colorado gets. You can look it up for those of you listening. But essentially, we had a bottom of the grade, definitely not up to code unit in Loveland that the water ran down the parking lot and pretty much just
into the garage door.
Hit our garage door.
What?
So it happens. It's raining one day, and we're all like, it's not raining. And the like weather report's like, it's gonna rain for like 4 days straight, guys. And so we were all like, should we go check on the gym? And it's like leaking underneath. So one of us runs to Home Depot to buy like sandbags, right? And we're like shoveling water from the garage and then slamming the sandbags down. Like, I mean, we're entrenching ourselves, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It was too little too late for us, and the water's just in the gym. So then we had to go in. We're like pulling mats back from the garage door, all the like wood things we're trying to like get off the ground and like make sure they're not rotted.
Jack up. And to be honest, the like other coaches at that time came to save the day, and actually some of our longtime students, Brad and stuff, came in and brought tools in to help us like pump water out and vacuum. So
they had like shop vacs.
That was I would say that was one of the biggest adversities that we faced early on, because we could have lost our equipment and just closed at that point. We were only a year in our lease, and just giving up would have been an option then, but we obviously had too much vigor for that. So Team Outrun at that point survives the flood, and then we were looking for where our next spot was going to be. We were at one month in on the lease, and if you're just joining, we're kind of just recapping stuff that leads up to an announcement here. We were about 10 months in on the lease, and we had a loose conversation with our landlord about what we were going to do, and kind of said, yeah, we're probably going to stay here for another year. And Fort Collins had just been hit by that storm, and there was this hail. So all the industrial flex, like if those of you who are in Fort Collins, you understand the struggle. There's ceiling height caps on the entire city, right? Exterior of the building, because
42 feet.
Everybody wants mountain views. Those regulations are very tight. The city is, for all practical purposes, landlocked for padding around the cities for development, and there's just not a lot of industrial flex. A lot of you guys are in cities that went through like a blue collar phase. Fort Collins maybe had that, but it was very light, and the population changed because of tech recently. So there's not a lot of warehouse space at all.
No.
And what is there has very short ceilings, which is hard for parkour gyms, and the price per square foot in Fort Collins is very high. So good and bad. Now I'm in my bed. I wake up one morning in my bed. This is 10 months in, and I'm looking at like one of the forums on like Facebook for the Colorado CrossFit forums. And I see someone saying, hey, we just got our new location.
That's how you found out.
That's how we found out. Yes. I'm waking up one morning and I'm just scrolling, like doing your morning scroll. I'm like, man, that location looks a lot like ours, but empty. And then I realized the landlord had leased out 2 months before the end of our lease, our location to a CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
And that's how I was notified. That's how we knew.
Without any sort of like notification to us. We never even gave a verbal confirmation that I think the issue was that we didn't verbally confirm that we were going to stay. Yeah. But we also didn't verbally say we weren't going to. And he never gave us the timeline of like, okay, well, you need to let me know by this point, right? Mm-hmm. I was never privy to that conversation.
No, we were too green to...
So it was just like, Travis woke up, he called us that morning and was like, yo, you guys know anything about this CrossFit gym that's taking over our space? And I was like, CrossFit? No.
That was hilarious.
And that was 2 months before our lease ended, so we just scrambled.
We scrambled in the middle of this post hailstorm situation. Everything is taken up temporarily because these like hail damage repair places are coming in and taking up. Yeah, we started looking immediately for a new spot, and there were a couple spots we looked at. Both were leased out from underneath us. We're a new business, there's just us and there's me with an income, right? And they're from a day job, and they're like, okay, well, we'll take your life, but this company over here says they're going to give us more, and they have this space, and And both of the locations we were looking at that we thought were going to be good got taken by people who were essentially just going to do hail damage repair for a year and then leave the city.
Yeah.
Yep.
Luckily, we found one spot that was about the same size and it's close to the units that we're in now. And the landlord was super cool, and the realtor was very cool, and they've been with us and friends with us forever, and they support us. And they said, "Look, if you get in a smaller space for a year, we'll look for if we find something bigger a year out, we'll transition your lease over." And so that's within 2 months we scrambled and hustled because we are hustlers for sure. That's how we got into our location prior to this one. Within a year there, we had started growing, and we should be clear that I think when we moved into that location, we probably had 60 students. This is not
Because we moved from Loveland to Fort Collins, so I think
we probably were down to 40,
lost
and then we bumped up. And
quite a few.
I think, if I remember.
But we needed because that spot was smaller.
So the move from Loveland was 2,400 official square footage. It was probably about, I'd say, not 1,200. It's a little more than that because we used the under the loft area.
You make use.
I would say we probably had 1,800 square feet, maybe up there, right? So 600 of wasted. And then we moved to a single unit here in Fort Collins that the maximum square footage of the space was like 2,100, not even.
2,100 of like maximum.
It was 1,800 parkour gym, and then we had a tiny 200 square foot lobby.
Yeah. So it was very small. We actually had less ceiling clearance in this spot because Fort Collins height restrictions. Mm-hmm. So we were actually downsizing in space or usable space, but our rent was increasing.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember looking at this space, and Travis, because I think Travis and our broker real estate agent showed us. I remember taking one look around the corner into that garage and be like, no, it's way too small.
Yeah, because you can see the whole space just from the garage.
I'm looking at it like, no, not happening. And then, a month later, it's like, here we are.
It's our only
moving
option.
into that same spot where I was like, it's not happening. We're not
make it work.
It was the only spot in Fort Collins that we could have gone, but it was hands down the best landlord that we could have gotten.
Yeah.
Because he found that spot and he was like, oh, this is easy. I like you guys. Let's get the spot 3 doors down.
And so we had in that space also a very big acceleration because that's where we started growing our story in Fort Collins more so than Loveland, and the quality of programs started to increase. Yep. We started running more individual experiments to split. At that time, we were running programs. We divided our acrobatic side with and we call it obstacle and acrobatic at that time, right? Which later on those programs evolved into Orbit and Terra, our 2 primary programs that we run now. And that was just a pragmatic solution, but people understand at that time to divide the 2 skill sets was a bit of a faux pas.
And to give them equal weight.
Was
really like almost controversial in parkour because the acrobatic side was just almost not considered parkour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and to a tiny fraction still today. But that was a huge thing for us to do. And to give them both equal sections of the gym and to give the programs equal weight and to give kids the option from the start to pick obstacle or acrobat.
Whether they just wanted to jump on stuff or flip off stuff, right? Basically. And so then also some of the fun quips about that little location is that our office at that point, we became known for having this office that the only way to get to it was to know parkour, and that's just such a parkour thing because it was 9 feet off the ground and we just didn't have the room to put ladders or anything, so we just had an overhang and a ledge, and we would just be doing our design work up there.
So the bathroom was a single bathroom, right? Single use bathroom, and it had a top on there,
capped.
And we were like, well, we need like an office, like a lounge really area, and so we actually primarily Justin, built an extension of that loft, right? A deck, that attached there. And the only way to get up there was to climb that vertical pole and sit up there. And
do the jump.
Or do the jump from one of the towers. That's right, where you had like a low ceiling.
5 foot jump with a jump in between a ceiling because the water line would hit you if you didn't get up.
But we had a couch up there. We had a little mini fridge. We had like a computer and a desk. And people would come in and they would see the front desk and then they'd walk into the gym. They'd turn around and they'd be like, oh, that's cool.
Right,
and that was kind of like our thing, which was very uniquely parkour, super uniquely us to be like, hey, there's a space that's usable. Let's make it ours and own it, right? Which is definitely a trend that we're...
But the only way to get up there, and at that time, that was sort of like a test to be staff. Like, you can work here, but you also have to be able to climb to the top of this, right? So that little bit, within a year, another couple spots opened up down 3 doors down, and that's the sort of 5-year journey that we've been in right now, which is moving from that spot to this spot. And our landlord stayed true to that promise of finding us more, and just found us more 3 doors down, bought the units where we're at now, and then we've leased from him for the last 5 years in this space. And this was sort of the first built out to what people were expecting to see when they came to a parkour gym. Up at this time, we always felt a couple years behind a lot of the gyms because they were working through these markets that had been hit by the recession, and a lot of this space was easier to get a hold of. And we were always just a little bit behind, and in these smaller spaces where people are like, oh, this is really cool. It's not quite as big and, wow, is what we were expecting, but it's cool. And so that sort of boutique feel has carried with us through these years. And the space that we're in now, it used to be a nightclub. So it was a nightclub, and
nightclub first.
It was a nightclub first, and then a sheet metal company had it. But basically, we came in, scrubbed it, cleaned it, and this is really where we learned, and primarily Justin, and then I learned how to move out of essentially white collar work into blue collar work to assist in building. And everything in here we built, all the bars, all the railing. Justin learned to weld in here, and he learned to, and Jesse and Justin primarily figured out how to craft stuff for sure. So everything in the gym now, if you see the pictures of it, we built by our own hands and actually became pretty good at it. And we ran constant experiments. Even, oftentimes if you go to a parkour gym now, the builds you'll see may be the same build you saw 7 years ago. There are many gyms that just have not changed. Yep. But because we are constantly in a process of change and reinvention, the design that's in the inside of the gym, there are a few things that are from the original build 5 years ago that's in here, but most of the items have been torn out and changed, and it happens about every 6 months as we try to accommodate programs growth and keep things interesting. So we don't shift as much as a climbing wall, but definitely I would say we change more than the average gym because our interest is in design. We've been very interested in design. That's part of our passion, and switching up our challenges as much as possible.
Yeah, I think maybe Origins kept up with us. Origins Parkour in Vancouver. They switch up their stuff quite a bit. But yeah, I think it was just our goal. We didn't build a giant, massive structure that you can't move. And they built it with the framing nailing guns. So, and we always, we just had ours movable. And I think that's just the way that we liked it. We always wanted something new and something that kept up with our programming. So
I think the big thing too is that we've shifted, I've noticed too, that originally we designed a facility for us, right?
Yeah.
When you think about the Loveland layout, we definitely obviously knew that we were going to be teaching in a facility, but what we thought was the draw was that a facility that appeals to high-level athletes will appeal to those wanting to be high-level athletes, right? And what we've now learned is that there's a middle line between you need to have teachable space and space that works well for a beginner that still attracts the eye of a high-level athlete. Mm-hmm. And so as a result of that, that's a very hard line to draw. So we've just had to experiment. I mean, for a while there, we were doing a new build, a complete new build every 6 months.
Yes.
Meaning if you were a member at that time, you would straight up come to class on Friday. We would close for the weekend. You would come back on Monday and the gym would be completely different. And those fortunately, Justin and I, and Travis was married at the time. Justin and I were just dating. So we weren't living with our partners at the time.
Same people.
Which is good because I don't think we would have survived that, because those weekends were, we put in probably 36 hours of work on those weekends because that's just how much work. Nowadays we look at that and we're like, we're too old for that stuff. Yeah. But I thought that was part of us too, right? It's we were always nope, this needs to happen. It needs to happen now. We got to go. We get in there, we pull everything up, we rearrange it, build some new stuff, tear down some old stuff, remount it. Kids would come in on Monday and they'd be like,
what? New gym?
What just happened? And we'd be like, ah.
So that surprise was very fun. And also the commitment of almost zero latency.
Yeah.
We were always unwilling. We wanted to make sure we served everybody as best we could. Yep. So we were never down. We did not believe in downtime. We still don't believe in downtime. It took a pandemic to give us any pseudo downtime, and we still never really stopped offering services. It was just the physical space.
So remember when we had when COVID hit U.S. shores, I believe my quote was, "I will require a state order before I because we all discussed, should we close, right?
Yeah.
Because other businesses were like preemptively closing. And I was like, no, I will require a state order before we close. March 17th, 2 days later.
State order.
Public Health Order 2022.
Yeah.
All gyms got to close. Now I was
Order
like,
66.
Yeah.
dang it.
Yeah, but
Good
luckily
stuff.
we had other ways to offer services and stuff too. So even then we didn't quit. Like people on the back end, we never stopped.
Yeah.
Like if anything, we doubled down. We had the podcast. We had Outrun Online. We started doing remote classes. We started doing hybrid stuff, and we just refused to stop because that's that team Outrun. So then we are in. Yep, we're in this spot here, and we're at about. We're coming up on 5 years now.
Yeah.
And so what people don't know is on the back end, we still haven't stopped hustling, and we have been working on a project for 2 years now.
Yeah.
And we come up with our lease at the end of March, which will be first quarter of 2021. And so the announcement is that we will be building a new location.
Yeah.
Oh.
And people don't know, but we haven't had our official groundbreaking ceremony yet. But the dirt is already cracked. We are under contract. Our lives are well, and we've sold our souls. We've sold our souls.
Yeah.
And so coming Q1 2021, we will have a new home for Outrun. So everybody is woohoo, right? I mean, this has been a long time coming, guys. This
Super long.
is the gym that we've been learning about ourselves in order to build, and it will be the product with very limited restrictions as to what we want to make happen.
Mm-hmm.
We are about 5 months out now.
Yeah. There's a hornet on the key light, by the way. I just want to point that
Colin's like, I noticed.
I just point that out for friends and family. Don't break the key light, though.
Don't do it, sir.
We'll win.
Take it.
Aang wouldn't do
Oh!
Did
Aang
you
never fought
finish?
with hornets, okay? That was
it.
never
Aang
a
would
thing.
have never done that.
Sorry.
Totally.
That's why I like Korra better.
Hey, he knows. That hornet knows
Yeah,
now.
Korra totally.
If it's not dead, it's gonna get me.
That was a
Well,
big one,
Why don't
too.
you
That
go
was-
look for it, Colin? I think I got it.
Be our vanguard.
All right, just check him out. He probably fell over the edge, but he's definitely dazed. Right? Okay. So I was just, we stay doing work during the podcast. I'm dealing with insects here. Trying to take these guys out.
Always hustling, even when hornets land on our keys.
Right? Hornet hustling. So the sorry for the distraction. Sorry for the segue. Yep, he's down, isn't he? Get him.
Thanks, Colin.
Okay, thanks, Colin. All right. So the new build, we're gonna talk not too much about it. We want to talk about the history, but give you guys some of the things we wanted to do inside. Why we need a new space. Some of the limiting factors here. Colin, I think he's dead. All right. Some of the limiting factors here are our ceiling heights.
Oh yeah.
So
Which
we're
is a
gonna
huge
address that.
one. That's
Massive.
Yeah. That's a Fort Collins unique problem too for Collins.
Yeah.
And into Outrun.
Mm-hmm. And the other things is that we've had decent square footage. We've never been able to do something that's been design build. So the intention here is to design the facility for the purpose of Outrun from scratch, from the dirt up, from sub dirt
From
up.
some dirt.
Okay. This is, and also it ties back to sort of this. There will be nods to our history in here, especially that, in the past, again, we were always subleasing from someone else. And even as in a sublease here, even though this is our lease, we're still repurposing a facility that was not designed for parkour.
Correct.
So this will be a built from scratch, bespoke parkour experience. Now, there were some hits that we took economically from COVID. The original project was larger in scale, but the new one had to be smaller just because, we couldn't have done this if members wouldn't have stuck with us through the COVID Palooza 2020 here. So it is definitely, by us for members, but we wouldn't have been able to do it without you guys and anybody who supports us, even in spirit. Okay. But it'll be a little bit smaller, so it'll be of similar square footage to where we're at now, but it will be optimized for the experience of the best parkour learning experience that we can put out there.
Yeah. Well, and I think a couple of the parents who have been with us the longest have we've expressed this sentiment to you guys that we couldn't have done it without you guys, and that a lot of this you guys are some of our inspiration, and I know that there's a lot of features that you guys have been wanting, so hopefully we can sneak a couple of those in there. But yeah, I think in designing this facility, we wanted to put our own souls into it, but yeah, we were thinking about you guys too. So
yeah, it is the experience of the home for Team Outrun at this point is going to be this new spot, and that's what it's going to feel like. I mean, that's what you can expect. There will be features that you won't expect.
yes.
There are surprises that we're not letting out of the bag until later. But
yes,
you
and
can
talking with the developers about these surprises is always very unique. Can you guys just put a hole right there?
what?
What do you want that there for?
And can you leave a hole there?
How high do you guys want to go?
And can you make that higher?
Can't go that high. Yeah.
And we used to jump to our office. How do we solve that?
That's been a fun journey for us, and definitely a learning experience. Is obviously we've never built a building from the ground up before, and we have people who are working with us who are really cooperative and really open minded around what we want, because we are very particular, and parkour is a very niche. Has very niche requirements around like the things that we've struggled with over the years. And so, yeah, we ask for things and they're like, okay, yeah. And we're like, people are going to climb on that. Can we reinforce that? And that's, I think, where a lot of our costs, we get to move costs from like, we don't like drywall
No.
because it's worthless, except in fire
Aesthetically, it's not bad, but for as far as
but for what we do, it sucks, right? So we don't like it. So part of the costs that we had to, that other businesses would have cost savings on, we have to attribute more of our budget towards. Mm-hmm. But some areas we actually, right, like we like concrete. Mm-hmm. We like raw, concrete that's just like water sealed and done, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to have polish on it. It doesn't have to have flooring because we have our own flooring. And so we get to save from there and kind of apportion everywhere. So when our members walk into the facility, it's going to feel very much like this is 100% from the ground up parkour. It's not going to feel like all of our past facilities where you walk in and you're like very clearly a parkour gym, but it's also clear that they had to adapt their model to fit this facility. Now it's the exact opposite, where the building fits our model and our what we feel Outrun is.
Yes.
Now the building gets to envelop around it.
And it's what's very cool about this developer. So just if you're in Fort Collins, geographically we can say where this is. It's behind Dutch Bros on Timberline. It's next to the Ascent Climbing Gym. It's in a area that's more suited for families to feel comfortable in, and also it's just a step up in quality. Well, it's several leaps and bounds. It's like a 10-foot broad jump.
I don't
up
know if
in
we
quality.
can compare being next to Dutch Bros and then being next to the funeral home.
Sad.
Right?
It's sad.
We
may it's not done yet, so we may end up over there. So so exactly with Desist it's going to be 100% Outrun, and I think that's what is important too, is that we have the creative gloves off, and I want to set the expectations that don't come in and expect this place to look like Urban Air or a trampoline park or maybe some of the other attempts at gyms where it's parkour or the equipment, the novelty of the equipment that's really driving why you'd want to be in there. You're going to want to be in there because it's going to feel like Outrun. You're going to understand what that is like and what that means. So that's going to help us present what's been in our creative side more that's been limited by a bunch of things, right? So it's just phenomenal. You guys are going to love it. And for those of us who've been with us for this entire journey, know that you play a key role in that. And it is Team Outrun. It is not just, it's not just, one or even three individuals, creating this experience for you. There'll be
and even though it's always been us three, it's never been about just us three.
It's
right?
true.
I think of not only have our members gone into helping us craft what Outrun is and helping us, figure that out, because that's really what a brand and a business like this is. It's all about finding what your business is, and who you are and representing that effectively in a business. And our members did a huge job of helping us figure out that, because they let us know what they wanted, right? And it was always a communication from us to them. But another layer to that is our staff who have been students of ours. In fact, the very few historically of our staff were not. A very small percentage were not students of ours previously, right? And that goes to show us too that our culture is about bringing you up and enveloping you in and adding your skills and your personality to Team Outrun, right? It's never been like, this is who we are, and if you don't fit that mold, you go elsewhere. It's been more adaptive of folding people in, and I have to say that our staff have helped us get to this point too, because they've helped us craft our programs, they've helped us craft our brand,
and their hands are dirty in it right now. Like, I mean, that is definitely what they're doing, and that goal of like legacy is definitely part of Outrun. I don't think there's any of us of the three founders have been like, no, I'm not letting go of that. No, I won't trust someone else with that when it comes to teaching. And then our attention growingly is on staff, as we understand that's what it takes to keep that connection with members. We don't want things to ever get so far off that people can't look up to their mentors and staff and the leadership of the organization and be proud of being a part of that. So super excited about that physical space. And when we talk about the brand, you guys are going to learn more and more about the brand Outrun, and sort of this location is going to help us portray the nature of why we're different and why you might find a deeper connection with us. But just know that there is an emphasis on the equipment for sure, but there's also us doubling down on the experience of being here and listening to what people have been saying about, this is what I enjoy about Outrun, or this is what I enjoy about, training with you guys in Fort Collins. The design aspect is something that we've all been very interested in. I come from a background in technology design, and you guys just talk a little bit about your interest in design, because people will say that about the gym. If you guys have been listening to the podcast, you've been in, even though we're a smaller kind of crafty thing, people will come in and be like, oh, this is really nice, I kind of don't want to jump on some stuff. I've heard people say that.
We have heard people say that in our current facility, actually.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about why design is important to you, and why that's unique, and why it complements the experience and makes us different.
Yeah, I don't know when it kind of, I think actually debating is what grew the design choice and the importance of it. I feel like when we disagree on things, aesthetically, I feel like it makes us all better, and I think that kind of just like a natural collision of what we wanted to build and what we thought it should look like helped us out. But I'm not sure. I feel like it was just like Tumblr was like almost the like biggest,
the old social platform
inspiration. I don't know. It's not a very interesting origin, but I feel like Tumblr design.
But you were also, I'll help, because I think you were an architect undergrad.
I only attended a few architecture classes, and it was landscape architecture, and I actually bailed out because I didn't like plants.
The irony is now you work in internal landscape.
Interior design really is where you wanted.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm still convinced that we should send it back, but
yeah, I think building the obstacles and realizing that it just has to look different, because we had a smaller space and we couldn't build this gigantic fortress in our 12,000 square foot warehouse. We had to be unique in a different way, and focusing on the smaller details and making sure that when you walked in, it felt like you were walking into, a science fiction book or movie or something. I feel like that's really what did it for us.
I think it was a couple of things of that. Like, there was pragmatic choices that we just had to make.
Have to use it, have to teach on it, right?
Because our facility didn't have enough room for fluff. We just couldn't afford fluff in our spaces ever. Every square footage had to be teachable and usable, both for training and for classes, right? And so part of that was we just had to dive in and really make sure that everything could fit in there and was usable and there wasn't wasted space. But on top of that, all three of us have always had an interest in the future. Right?
Yeah.
Interest in sci-fi and fiction to varying degrees, right?
And technology.
Like we've always, and tech, in the combination of fiction and tech is sci-fi, and sci-fi has always had its unique aesthetic.
Yeah.
Right. And so we've always had an interest in making sure things fit our vision, because we always had clear visions of what we wanted the future to be like. Right. We're all kind of geeky and nerdy. And so we all wanted things to have the same awe and the same inspiration that you get when you look at some cool, like, futuristic drawing that an artist done. And you're like, that's cool. We've always wanted our facility to have the same draw. Yeah.
And I think that some other things that make it a little bit unique too is that we also always are obsessed with appearing original and not individual, but authentic.
Like that.
We're a straight hipster like that. Like, we don't necessarily like, anything we like, we'll see, and to a fault, we'll change it potentially, even though it usually doesn't end up being a fault. Like, we want to see futuristic stuff, but we don't want to necessarily copy directly from another designer, another artist. So when we were looking at, like, the Outrun brand, we drew from different, inspirations, Tron and cyberpunk and things like that. But we wanted something uniquely our own. And so we worked with people and worked with designers to help us with that identity and find something and create something new. And I think that's what's legacy, and that's what's going to be very, very interesting about what we do in this next spot, is that it should feel pretty unique. And we have some partners in that will sort of drip out who those people are and how they've helped us in the future. And also, as we launch that, people will start to learn more and more about the Outrun brand and logo story, which we haven't talked a ton about, that has some exciting people behind it as well. But we're closing up on time, right?
Yep.
We're at time. Yeah. So do you guys want to bring anything else up?
Oh, I'm sure we could keep going.
Yeah, I think we could talk about this.
We'll save some more surprises and, like, teasers and stuff for later.
We are very excited about this entire thing. This is something that we've dreamed of since we started the company. And I feel like we're finally going to find an official foundation for the business. I don't say home because I know I don't know what the future holds, and never say never, Justin Bieber kind of thing. You never know where you're gonna go. So I just want to say, like, this is gonna be an amazing final footprint for us, where we can settle in and finally have a place that the brand can go in the direction it's always wanted to go. Because I feel like we've always been hit with adversity, and the brand has had to compromise part of itself to wrap around those adversities. Right?
It's been, yes.
And now finally, adversity will still be there, just like, Korra, like, every season has its own antagonists, and we're going to rise up against it. But I think we're going to have, as we always have, an amazing team Outrun that's going to be able to push back against that, rather than just having to take
a Republic City, if you may.
Yes.
Exactly. So there's an analogy for you. And if you want to help, I know that we're going to get a lot of people who are say, hey, I'm willing to help with this. The best way you can help is just enjoy the services, be a member, get as involved as you can in classes, work through the challenges, just support the business. And then we're going to give that back by making the experience better. Yep. Even our hands are going to be off a lot of things for reasons.
This will be one of the first ones where we don't build the majority of things in there.
Right. So we're just at that another level of building that, right? We're in the design. We're in the design side. We're setting requirements, and then someone else is.
Make sure you ask us about Travis's journey in our build phases.
Yes. Travis's journey from white collar computer work to how to frame a box has been a wonderful journey.
He did make it, though. He did build a corner.
He has, and in fact, at his house, he's done several projects that I walked in, and he was like, "Hey, check this thing out." And
he's
I was like,
"Wow!"
Now. And I jumped on it, and it didn't collapse. And I was like, "This is solidly done."
Yes. It is a story of growth.
We have many enjoyable anecdotes about Travis's.
Yeah, and I have a lot of that on video, so hopefully we can give some people some feels through some content in the future too. But yeah, you guys, double down on Team Outrun, double down on who we are. You guys, it's great. And if you're just learning about us, there are ways to get involved. Hit us up for online stuff,
even remotely.
Remotely
if you're not in Colorado and you're not in Fort Collins, we have services that we can provide online.
Yep.
If you like what we do and you want to contribute. And obviously we have never been we don't want, like, charity. Mm-hmm. If you want our services, we want to give you back equal what you're paying for. So
that's what we're going for. There's a place for you here.
There is a place. If you move, you belong here.
Yep. You're probably going to pay for membership, but.
Yeah, I mean, we don't work for free. But if you're listening and you have services, you shouldn't work for free either.
Right.
You have a valuable skill. Charge for it.
Charge for it. Right. That is how we survived COVID. All right. All right, you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. And I know there's people we haven't mentioned who've contributed to the business and what's happening directly, but just know that
You're in a hurry.
yes,
and we'll mention them along the way.
Yeah.
We'll have far more details. I mean, it's still a 6-month journey to get there. So
is it now? I'm counting.
It's somewhere
Yep,
around
six-
there.
six-ish.
With
Yep.
construction, you never know.
Yep.
and we are not.
And let's see, we're trying to make the promise of zero latency.
Downtime? Yeah.
Zero downtime?
Absolutely.
That's
We're
what we're
gonna fight for it.
striving for,
We're gonna
zero downtime. So,
Again, we like the you come in one day and you're like, and you're lulled. You're like, this is where I go. It's everything the same. And the other day you come in and you
Boom.
smack you.
It's
Boom.
Right
like
in the face with something cool.
It's like you moved houses and you went out
Yeah.
to dinner and then you came back to your new house and movers had already brought all of your stuff and set it up for you. That's what we envision,
Yes.
is that you're just going to be like, I went to dinner and then it came and I had a cool new space.
Is the reality TV shows are like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
where they do their
Whether or
home
not
models.
whether or not we can meet that strict reality TV switch is another thing. We are always going to fight for zero downtime because we love what we do,
We're gonna
and
keep you
every
moving.
day we're not doing that is a day that we're not as happy as we could be. So
That's true.
thanks for joining in. If you are listening on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we are on YouTube as well if you want to see our faces, so you can check us out there. Outrun, as well as a ton of actual parkour content,
Right?
educational content that's just listed for
A lot
free.
of our teaching's free.
It's free. You can
on
check it
YouTube.
out there if you're not here. If you want something, more in depth or customized, you can always reach out to us. We do private coaching, remote work as well, so that's an option. But please check us out on YouTube if you haven't already. And if you're watching on YouTube and you don't have YouTube Red, so you have to close the app every now and then, you can check us out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, where you can put your phone away and not have to watch.
The
the
hack
entire
is
time.
to Chromecast.
The hack is to Chromecast. Yeah, it's true. If you have a smart TV, which pretty much everybody does now.
And you want to see us on a big TV. There's a lot of
So-
screen real estate.
There's a lot of
You can
white
see the
thigh here.
white
that you can
thighs
check out.
and-
White thighs are actually kind of white too, right?
And murdering of hornets. Murder hornets.
Yeah, you could watch that. on YouTube. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
All right.
Thank you
Peace.
guys.